Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Multipliers Leadership Podcast. Man, I'm so excited to be back with you. My name is Joseph, as you know, and we are joined with Sue Whitley today. And man, it looks different today if you're watching on YouTube because we get to be in person today. But let me just tell you this about Sue. Sue is a pastor. She loves Jesus. She loves people. I would actually say she's a champion of both so well, has such a heart for the nations, and we can't wait to glean from some of the wisdom that she has. So, Sue, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Man, we're so excited to have you here, and you've got a little bit of background that we've got to know. I think you have 11 siblings or so. Is that right? 10? Okay. All right. Tell us a little bit more. How did you grow up? Give us some insight as to who you are.
Well, I grew up in a little town in Oklahoma, and I'm the last of 10 kids. And we didn't live across the track, but we lived 2 or 3 blocks from it. But we had a good life, just a wonderful life, small town. And I loved Poto Pirates. So
Poto Pirates, okay. I know about Oklahoma, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And now, when did you really sense, you grew up in that setting, but when did you really sense the calling that God had on your life? Like, tell me about some more of that and just some understanding of what's around that season.
One of the things that I've always known that I love Jesus.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I went to a camp meeting. It was like an Assembly of God camp meeting.
Yeah.
And I actually was standing outside. I went with some of the girls and just standing there looking around. And he called me out. The minister did.
Okay.
Called me down and he prophesied over me, and I'm like, because the next day I was trying out for cheerleader. And I was like, I'm being a cheerleader at 16 years old is more important than going to the nations.
Yeah, but I can't say that was my thought personally, but yes, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was good, and I've always felt a real calling, actually for poor people. I've always wanted to help the people that were in poverty.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at my life, that's probably the thing that most has shaped my life, whether it was in America or, in other countries. I've been with Josh on a couple of mission trips down in Bolivia.
Yeah.
And but I ended up, and I've lived in South Africa for a while with my husband. Yeah. And I ended up in Romania. And that's the country.
That's where the calling started. And
that's what took my heart.
Yeah.
I've got a sign on my wall that says I've left my heart in so many places. Well, I have. My heart hurts for people who hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of what I've been and what I've done. And, I can tell you some good stories. We all have stories, don't we? But,
well, let's talk about that a little bit more. I'd love to hear just like, even just a focus for your life. Obviously, you've talked about Romania some, like, and people that are poor. And so talk to me about some of that focus and just how that's shaped up to go from a 16-year-old girl that has a call, like literally a call prophesied over her, whether she wants to receive it or not, to this. Like, what's that space in between, I guess? Let's start there.
Well, the space in between was you get out of school, you get educated, and you go and try to live your life the way you want to live it. And you always know in your heart that the Lord has a call on your life, but you don't. Sometimes you fight it, sometimes you don't. But it was always there for me. And so when I lived in Oklahoma for years, and then my husband and I, we came over to Arkansas. He was raised over here, and his dad had called one day on the phone and said, "I'm getting ready to retire," and he had chicken plants of all things.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'll go with you, So we came here, and then Bob got really involved in full gospel, and I got very involved in the women's ministry. And then, so we worked together like that in the town. We had friends from a lot of different churches.
Yeah.
And it was just a really wonderful time of my life. I don't even know how to tell you how wonderful it was. My husband he felt such a call to the ministry and to missions. And So he came in, 2 or 3 times, and he'd say, let's go to South Africa. Let's go here. I'm like, I'm not going. I'm sorry. I got children at home. I'm not going. But one day, Pastor Steve actually went to South Africa. And when he came back, I found this out later, Bob had told him, while you're in South Africa, if you see anything that we might be good at, just think about us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when he came back, he called us in his office and he just said, I know you would be so good for those people. And so I remember sitting on my couch and saying, God, I'll go. But if you don't take care of my children, if you don't do these things, I'm going to be mad at you. So but I went with him. And while we were there, we wrote, we met with some pastors. They were, most of them were either African or multiracial. And Bob said, what do y'all need? And they said, we've got so many kids, or young people, not kids, that want to go in the ministry and want to do more for Jesus, but they don't have the money to go to Bible school. And so they wrote this big thing of all they wanted to do. And so Bob and I spent 2 or 3 years in South Africa writing the curriculum for some of those schools for kids that didn't have the money to go and
actually go to Bible school and things of that nature.
Yeah. But what we wrote was good. It's been used in a lot of different countries now. And it was a good time for us. I remember the last day in South Africa that we went where we lived by the ocean, and we were like sitting at this little place and having breakfast, and a school of dolphins came by, and it was like God was just giving me a little gift, a gift to see the beauty of that. And so we did that, and then went on our way home. I had gone on a mission trip with some friends to Romania right before we moved to Africa. In fact, the lady that came here to talk to our church, she said she's getting ready to take a group to Romania, and she said, I've got room for 2 more people if they want to go. And I stood up in the service and said,
the same 16-year-old girl who wasn't so sure about this. Okay.
I said, all right. I want to go.
Okay, I see it.
And it was so funny. Bob was like stepping on my foot. But you know what? This is what God does. When the service was over, I walked back to the back, and I walked up to Cozy, my pastor's wife, and I said, I really want to go. And she said, well, because I was a women's minister here then. Yeah. She said, we know you want to go, and we're going to pay your way. Well, then I walked over to Red, and I said, Red, well, I went to Red first. I said, Red, I want to go. He said, if you'll raise half of the money, I'll give you the other half. Okay. Then I walked to Cozy, and she said, we're going to pay your way. So, and by the time I got out into the lobby, there were several people that came, and they were giving me money, and they were saying, what can we do for you? It was just so much God.
Wow.
It was God. So we went, and I went there, and then we came back, and we went to South Africa. But what happened was when I was in Romania, I met this little girl, and God used it as a hook in my jaw almost. And I saw him. We went to many orphanages. And I was just like, God, this is just unbelievable. So on our way to Africa, Bob agreed to go to Romania for a couple of weeks. So he got to see everything. Mm-hmm. And then we stayed in Africa and did the work there. Came back here. We went to live in Romania. And we had just come home for a short time of vacation. Bob's dad was not well, so we thought we need to go. So we came back home, and when we got here, Bob was feeling bad. But I thought, oh, he's just feeling bad because, well, he thought it too. Because when we travel, you've been there, your stomach.
Going there.
So, yeah. So we got to see everyone and do that. And so when I was getting ready to leave, this couple, Martha and Paul Westberg, they were getting ready to bring a group over to see us. They were coming on Monday. Well, she kept calling me all week and saying, Paul is worried about carrying the money in. He just doesn't feel good about carrying the money in. I said, okay, I'll just come by and I'll meet you at the outlet mall and I'll just take the money. That's no big deal. So I went by and it was like $10,000 cash, and she didn't want to take it in. But it was
not the money that I carry around is $10,000 cash.
But, we travel. And so what happened was we got there, and by the time we got there, Bob was not feeling well at all. And that was like on a Friday. And on Saturday morning, Bob died. He just died in Romania. And I had a friend with me from here, a girl named Christy, and she said, she called Steve, Pastor Steve, and she said, Steve, if we don't have a miracle, Bob just died. We were in shock. And Cozy jumped. Of course, we were 8 hours ahead. Cozy jumped out of her bed and went into the living room. And she said she got down and she was like interceding for us, right?
Yeah.
And she said as much as she could hear us talking, she heard Bob say, "Oh, Susie, if you could only see."
Mm-hmm.
They said it twice.
Wow.
And she came back in the room and she told Steve, Bob's not coming back because he'd seen, and a lot of people can tell you stuff like that and you just think, oh, whatever. But I trusted her.
Yeah.
God used someone that I trusted. And I think that's one of the things I've learned over the years, that God will use people that are willing and want to do. God programmed me from a little girl to care about poor people. And then every season of my life, it was different.
Yeah.
But I was programmed to love the unlovable.
Yeah.
That's just kind of, I really think a lot about the seasons of life. We've been talking a little bit about your season.
It's true, yeah.
But, I look back over my life, back a long time ago, probably in the fourth grade, when I walked down to the front of the church and said, Jesus, I want to be you in my heart. But, did I take a lot of detours?
Oh, man. Well, we don't have enough time for all the detours.
I wouldn't tell them anyway. But anyway, it's been an interesting life.
So I'd love to talk about Bob a moment longer. I'd love just to hear more about him and really just how do you handle grief for somebody that's so significant? I mean,
Bob was one of those kind of people that I know people think you make stuff up, but he was so good. I am not one of those people that's so good. But he just made everything so calm and so good. And once we were married, it was just something about him that just made me be peaceful. And, I'm probably more of a person, but he was just always calm. He loved this church. He loved everything about here. And he loved our pastors here. But he always wanted something. He wanted to give something to Jesus that was special. He always wanted that.
Yeah.
And so when we wrote those books, and when we came back home, and then he died, I knew that those books were something that he did for the Lord. That he wanted something to give to God.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but just to have, we all would like to have something, even the Bible talks about throwing your crown, giving your crown at his feet and thankfulness to God.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob was just a good man. And was it hard? Yes, it was. There are no words to know that if he would have even died here, but he went to heaven straight from Romania. And so I remember on my way home when we were coming back, and at the airport, not my mama, but all my sisters were there. All my family was there waiting for me. And I was home. I needed to be home for that season.
It's true.
So, and I made a lot of mistakes. I remember Pastor Steve and all the elders of the church said, stay home for a year. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure everything's all right. I said, I just can't do that. Those people over there, they need me, you know. So for the first year, I'd go over there. And then I'd just get so sad. And I'd call Pastor Steve and he'd say, come on home. So that happened, I don't know how many times, several times, because you have to grow back. What you've done is one half of you disappears. So you have to grow back the other half. It's not easy, but I do know that those years with Bob were just valuable to me because I learned from him. I learned to be more steady. My word for this year I chose was steadfast because with everything going on in the world and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think we need people that are Christians to be steadfast. Say, I'm going to be steadfast, unmovable. I'm going to abound in the work of the Lord.
That's a word.
And whether it's something big or whether it's take a Coke or something 100%. To your neighbor.
Yes.
It's not that. Ernie Condiff, a good friend of mine that runs Life Source, he always said, all the time, if you just give a cup of cold water in the name of the Lord, which is in the Bible, but it's the heart behind what you do.
Yeah.
It's not just going for the adventure to have the vision. I've taken so many people to Romania, many people from this church and other churches, but I've taken lots and lots and lots of kids. In fact, I'm going to be taking another kid that's right here pretty soon. But just doing that and introducing the children. I told the women, I want you to go, but I don't want you to go prophesying over it. I want God. My whole belief is that every human being deserves to feel God's love at least one time in their life.
Yeah,
that's what I base my whole life on. It's every human being has value, and they deserve to feel it, to know unconditional love. And so I think that's probably the way that if you had to say something, I know with Bob on his tombstone, I just said, love never fails, because that's
right.
It's the truth.
Yeah, and then Sue, I'd love to go back to something you said.
Okay.
You said that when you first came to Romania, there was a little girl that gripped your heart.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about her and why that gripped your heart so? Which I know a little bit, but yeah. I want to know more.
Maria Magdalena. When I first saw her at the orphanage, she was feisty, and they were all dancing, and the kids, they had never done this at this orphanage, but they let us spend the night. So the kids got everything all cleaned up, and they went and slept together somewhere, would give us the beds. I remember the bed that I got in, Maria Magdalena's bed, and it was so, once you got in it, you couldn't move because they were so bad, But I remember that when we left that orphanage, all the girls were standing there chasing our own saying, telling us how much they loved us. And so I went back home, and I was at the library the next morning, find out, because I felt like that the Lord told me Maria Magdalena is going to do for Romania some great things. And I went to find out some things about different saints and stuff. And so it took me, after Bob died, I thought, well, I went home, but I knew I needed to get her. Because at that time, it's not that way now, but at that time, if you didn't get a child out by the time they were 16, they weren't coming out. Mm-hmm. So right when she got 16, I brought her out, and I brought a little boy named Alex. That was, he's my nephew now. And it's just, there's no way. Now I've got another little girl over there that she's just dying for me to get back over there.
Yeah.
And I've got to go back soon. I just have to. I'm old now.
You're not old, Sue. Well, hold on. Let's talk about that. Sue, you're always, every time I've interacted with you, every single time, you've been so young at heart. Like, how do you continue to say, to exemplify that? Really, in everything that I've seen you do and be a part of, like, there's nothing about your heart that appears old at all. And we joked about it earlier, but talk to us about that. Like, how do you still stay young at heart with eagerness for the kingdom, the steadfastness that you talk about? Like, I see that in you already. Like, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, one thing that you have to really understand is that, Bob's been gone now over 20 years, and there were some chances. Your mind thinks, maybe I'll marry somebody else and we'll go back. And I had a couple of different people say, we'll go with you, we'll do this, we'll do that. But Jesus was more important to me. Jesus and those kids. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I remember I went back to my 50th reunion at school, and I met, we had about 8 girls that did everything together. Mm. And when they saw me, I was a cheerleader more than a preacher.
Yeah, a little different.
But everything they did at that thing, they were also shocked for the stuff that I was doing to help the children.
Yeah.
And they kept wanting me to pray all the time. Pray. They wanted me.
You're always the designated prayer. You ever get ministry, you become the designated prayer person.
You probably are too.
And that's okay, but it's funny.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. I just helping people makes me feel alive inside. When I know that traveling a lot, I had to take a lot of shots and do a lot of stuff and I've always been so healthy. Except, you have arthritis because you're old, but it was, I had some health problems this last summer, and I just wanted to give up. You think, well, why, or is this happening? But because of that, now I said I've had 1 year of fixing myself, and now I just want to have just maybe 5 more years of strength. I like prophecy. I like to minister. I know when I first went to Romania, they didn't really want women to preach to them. The men didn't. But I had one guy that I worked with a lot, and he's like, he wanted me up there because I was teaching them something they had never heard before. And it was a wonderful day when they all came because they wanted to hear what I knew. I'll tell you, it's interesting. It'll take about a minute or two. Yeah. One time, my husband and I, Bob and I, we were going to go teach in a Bible school on the other side of Romania. So we got in a train, and it was freezing cold, and we went all the way across the place. And the next day or two, it was like an evening meeting, and the place was full. And some guy came in, and he just looked pitiful. And they were the people that had the school. They were like, you can't come in here. This is private. It's a Bible school. But something in my heart just said, no, let him come. I mean, it's cold out there.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. And so he came. And when I finished teaching, I was talking about the love of God inside us, the what God does to us and changes us. And when it was over, he came up there and he said, he was crying. He said, I know who you're talking about. He said, when I was a little boy, my grandma told me about that man. And he said, I remember going out in the yard and climbing under a bush and talking to that person. And he said, but I've been a communist and I've done horribly, horribly bad things to people. And I was able to pray with him. I said, do you realize how valuable you are to God, that God would take a little girl from Poto, Oklahoma, and take her all the way around the world so that she could remind you of your grandma and of Jesus. And that's I truly believe that. I believe that God heard that grandma's prayer. I know a lot of grandmas out there, a lot of people that really, they want to pray for their children and their grandchildren. But that woman, the way she prayed in faith, he went through all those years of being a communist, did awful things to people. But in the end, his grandma's prayer, which were in the, what is it, the Bible says, your prayer, you're in the basket before the Lord, and that incense of those prayers always going up to the Lord. So, you know, my mama, she raised 10, and when she, at her funerals, several people in the neighborhood came up and told us every day we would walk past Miss Tyler's house and we would hear her. She'd be down on her knees by her bed, calling out her daughter's names and praying her children. It worked. It worked.
Yeah. She says the prayers of a righteous man
availeth much.
That's right.
Says.
Wow. What a word. And even just it's a beautiful picture and story of literally years and years that it took to be able to have that man experience Jesus again. That's powerful. That's so good. So I'd love to. We've got a wide range of listeners. We've got some that are younger as well, and I would love just kind of your perspective on like what would you want to share or tell the younger generation when it comes to the kingdom of God and leadership? Like, what is it that you're like, man, if they can know this, stepping into whatever season they're in, like,
there's a scripture that's been one of my favorite forever. Oh, that I would know him and the power of his revelation. And all I would say to the young people, I just would say, you're going to go have fun. It's all right to have fun. But in the core of who you are, in that core, leave a space for Jesus and make sure that even if it's just the scripture, John 3:16, whatever, find the scripture, build your life around the word. And I know when you're in football and baseball and cheerleading, whatever, you've got things you're going on, but you know, if you frame your life with the word of God, Jesus will always be there in the center of it.
Let me ask you just one last question as we wrap our time.
Okay.
So as I've heard and seen from afar, even up close, you've got such a legacy. Your life is a legacy. It really is. And one that many, like myself and others, that we look up to and we say, man, this is a person that I admire, but also that's had great kingdom impact. And like when you think about your life, like what do you want to be known for? Like what legacy do you want to be there? Like, because
what legacy? On my ministry card it says, changing destinies, one life at a time. And I think that's what I would like to see. I want to change. I don't want to go and change them myself, but I want to give them the meat of the word and the fruit of the word and let them see and understand. When we look at ourselves, we see all the failures or we see all the weaknesses. So when somebody says something like that to me, I'm just like, I don't even see that,
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one time, Josh, when I went with him to Bolivia, and he watched me the whole time, and he told me, he said, I saw you speaking in churches, I saw you doing all this stuff. He said, but the place where you were the happiest on that trip was we made big pots of soup,
Mm-hmm.
and we stood out and fed the hungry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you found your core. We each find our core. And, we can't all do the same thing.
Of course.
But for me, if I can help somebody along the way, then my living has not been in vain. There's a song like that. So that's who I am.
That's great, Sue. So I know we could talk for probably a really long time, and it would be great. But I'll just say this to our listeners today is that, Sue has had great impact in the kingdom, but it's been because of that core. It's been because of that foundation. And I think you nailed it when you said to be able to serve even from the bottom up to others is so, so powerful. And so, listeners, thanks again for listening to the Multipliers Leadership Podcast. May you go out and serve somebody else so that way, ultimately, you can unlock the kingdom in somebody else as well. Thanks again, Sue. We love you too. So grateful for you. And we'll see you guys again in another couple weeks. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.